local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the feed. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike and Marty on April 28th, 2021. And today we have Matt Peake and Gordon Korstange with us. And we're going to be talking about their new book and a fun game that we're going to talk about a little bit. But first, Marty's going to give us some local events.
First off, I want to give a huge shout out to Alex and the crew. That was a great rebranding of our opening, and huge shout out to Floyd for our new cover song. So it was the first. This is the premiere of the new branding, but not the premiere of the cover song. We've had that for a while, a couple weeks, I think.
A week.
A week? Okay. I thought it was a couple weeks. Usually we try to keep the show very light and airy, but we do want to address, we at the feed would like to offer our sincere sympathy and condolences to the Spalding and Joyle families for their tragic loss that they suffered this past weekend. It was not only a loss for the families, but it was a loss for the community. Annette was a great guest on our show. We worked with Dick at the fitness center. So we just wanted to acknowledge and send our sincere sympathies to those two families.
Okay, thank you, Marty. That was very nice. On a lighter note, we have our guests today are Matt Peake and Gordon Korstange, and they've worked on a project that's really unique, I think. And maybe we could talk about GorMatt Strange Peak. Who in the world is GorMatt Strange Peak?
That's a very good question, and maybe we'll have an answer by the end of the show. I think it's interesting to sort of ask the question, how did a poet like Gordon and a painter like me turn into a collage-making artist, GorMatt Strange Peak? And I'm just going to give a brief overview of how that all happened, because it started, to my recollection, about 6 or so years ago when Gordon and I would go out to breakfast once a week at a local diner. We'd enjoy the meal and have a nice conversation, but something was missing. And for us, it turned out that we needed an element of play. And so we hit on this idea that we would do a collaborative art-making project. And Gordon, being a poet and a writer, was a master of word, and I had experience in, of course, crafting image. So we decided that we would start with a blank piece of paper. I'd put an image down on it. He would write a word or a sentence or a phrase, and then we would trade. And I'd look at his words, and I'd add an image to his words, and he would look at my image and add some words to mine.
Interesting. So
we did this. We exchanged for several turns. And then at the end of an hour or so, we had a couple of pieces of artwork. With time, we started with graphite, just a regular pencil, writing and drawing, and then we added colored pencils and markers. Occasionally, we would cut a piece of a magazine up and add it to it. But most of our artwork was hand drawn or handwritten. Now, we attracted the interest of Main Street Arts, and they said, we like the collaborative nature of your work. Why don't we do a show? And we had a show there. I think it was in 2017. And afterwards, we made another pivot. We loved our show, but there was something about it that we wanted to change. And we decided from then on that instead of using the written word and the hand-drawn images, that we were going to start cutting up maybe articles or magazine pictures and use those instead of our hand-drawn works.
Because then never mind, you could go faster then, in a way.
Well, yeah, I think the advantage was, for me, I had a lot of experience drawing. Gordon had not. He was keyboarding or using other ways to write, and so he didn't have a lot of experience with art. And so for him, it made it easier for him to cut an image and put it on than for him to render an image, and so forth. So there's a calendar that I got. My brother generously sent me this museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, day in the life of their permanent collection, and so we would use pictures of so-called great art, and we would cut them up and repurpose them, and so hence it was Great Art Undone. So what we would do is we'd again start with a blank piece. We'd each have a blank piece of paper. We'd take something like this, maybe cut it out, part of it out, put it down, trade, and then we would keep adding
Okay.
to each other's work. Now, at the end of this, we had 2 collages. But because we were playing to my strength, which was image making, it was leaving out the word
narrative, yeah.
play of that. And so we decided to take those collages home and pretend we were an art curator or a gallery director, and we would write up the so-called label that was next to the great piece of art on the wall. So we would put a title to it, and we would add sort of a commentary of what was going on in the artwork, and then maybe where it was influenced or how it became how it became in existence. So I'm gonna stop the story there. I'm gonna actually have Gordon take up the second part of the story.
Well, as we were starting to do these, they're actually called labels in the art world, where you have, you've all seen them. If you go to a museum, the small print on the side, right, which you stare at, and then it's supposed to tell you or point to you where you should look at in the page, and then in the painting or whatever it is, and then it will tell you a bit of the history of how it was made and who made it, and the history of the art person, of the painter, the artist, and then it also tells you where the painting, who it's owned by, and where you can find it if you want to find it. So I sort of thought, well, why don't we need to have an artist here, and so we created GorMatt Strange Peak as the artist, and then naturally the next step was, well, who is GorMatt Strange Peak?
Right.
And then because we were following the sort of the principles of surrealism, namely we chose at random what we were going to put down.
Oh.
It was also a game. The surrealists love to play games. So there was a time limit on it, and the whole point was the process of the game. You know, the surrealists claimed that they didn't care about the final product.
It was all about
It was the
process.
doing of it.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So we made GorMatt Strange Peak into a surrealist. We were already sort of that way because randomness is, you know, if you look at this, it's a collection of random images, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we thought, well, where does he live? And we decided he lived in Happenstance, Vermont.
Which is a sort of randomness.
Right, which is somewhere in the under the mountains, you know, which you can find if you look carefully about it. And he was a sort of frustrated. He had been an artist in his early life, but he returned to Vermont, and so he decided he was going to make collages, and he was going to use the village as an art gallery. And so that means, you know, if you wanted to find out where such and such a collage was, well, you know, it was at this house, or it was at the town hall, or in the grocery store near the meat locker, or something like that. Okay. And then that gradually, just like in Lake Wobegon, people appeared out of happenstance. You know, there was a poet named Rand Ohm, who was a famous poet, and then there was then there was a heathen, somebody called Heathen Extraordinary, Merlin Swirl, who was from California and had moved to Vermont. Anyway, we just started to add people, you know.
Citizens
of happenstance.
Yes,
right?
I understand.
And gradually these things started to appear in the labels, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so then you would find out, well, you know, GorMatt Strange Peak created this for the Christmas revels, which are Merlin Swirl and a whole bunch of people chanting around a circle of fire, and we just started to make up these little stories. And
Not far from reality in Vermont, though, it sounds like.
No, we relied heavily upon our experience living in Vermont.
I can imagine.
But talk about Jane Docent.
Oh yes, because we needed. So then we decided, since it's a museum, if you have an exhibition, you have a curator, you have
Yes,
someone who does it.
yes.
So we thought, well, we need a curator. So we came up with Jane Docent. It was a combination of Jane Doe and Docent. And she took on a life of her own. She was the daughter of the second grade teacher who taught GorMatt Strange Peak, or Gormy, as we call them, and
childhood.
returned after getting her PhD to teach at nearby Consignment College, which is somewhere under the mountains also. And so she becomes his promoter,
Not
And-
just his dose.
And it's only because of her that we have this book.
Oh, okay. I
you
didn't
know?
realize that.
And so she would go, she has a lot of connections in happenstance, and she figures in some of the labels as well.
That's incredibly cool. Marty, I want to throw, before we monopolize the whole,
I might be getting ahead of where you're going, but the thing that popped into my mind as you were discussing this process, especially Gordon, since you were a teacher, is the possible application in like a school setting for children to really learn about art and get excited about art and do some hands-on rather than going to a museum and looking at, the pictures. It just struck me. Have you thought about that component of what you do, what you've been doing?
Well, we want to promote it as a game, and for me, making a making a collage is a whole lot easier than doing a drawing or a painting.
yes, yeah.
Right, and then to make it with someone, it's a creative process, and you can put all kinds of rules on the game if you want. For example, one rule that we used was you can only use geometric shapes in this particular collage, right?
Okay.
That would be a rule, because the surrealists, they thought rules were very good, even though they were totally
They were
wacko.
against them.
But they thought rules were good because they forced people to get out of their to get out of their mindset. So, yes, I think it could. I think it'd be a great art project, and because it's collaborative, and
definitely
because people would, if they would, if an art teacher had a whole bunch of great art, then you could easily do it.
Well, and my question was, the next logical, at least in my mind, the next logical character was the critics. Are there critics who go after GorMatt or speak on GorMatt's art, or not? Because you have a docent, you have all these people, and you have an art gallery, but it seems like a natural, good or bad, good or evil, is critics. And
That is an interesting idea. We have, GorMatt Strange Peak was the reason he returned to Happenstance is because he didn't want to deal with the critics, because originally before this he was in New Jersey, and about to go to New York City and enter the
nest
art
of
world,
critics.
but he gave up on that and came back to his village. So, the village people they just think he's crazy anyway. So, but yeah, that's true. We could have a critic.
I thought you already might. I was fishing there.
No, it's great. And then some of the labels that are written by Jane Docent do refer to critics' interaction with GorMatt and the influence that the critics had on his work, which a lot of times was just a snub and turning his back on them and saying, I'm doing it this way.
Yeah. So there is a book, just so everyone understands. We maybe should have started with that, but maybe there is a book, and then there's several things that are in the book that I found interesting, and we have some graphics on this. There's actually a map of Happenstance, right?
Right. I don't know if you can show the cover that
I don't know if he
we'll
knows
give-
which
we'll
one
give
is the
people-
cover. The cover is this.
We'll give people the idea of where
Yeah.
the book is, and then there's the first page in is the map of Happenstance, which lists all the residences and businesses where you might find the collages in the book that you've just read about.
Oh, don't forget the pictures of Jane and
Oh, there
GorMatt.
are actually.
Yes.
Self-portraits.
We do have, there the two of them are. Made in collage form, of course.
Well, his name is a collage form too.
That's true.
Excellent point. Excellent point. No,
So,
no,
so the thing says, GorMatt Strange Peak, Great Art Undone in the happenstance years 2018 to 2020. So we tried to make
This is
it.
his happenstance period.
We tried to make it sort of like sounding almost official.
Yes, very good.
But it's
Oh,
not.
I agree.
You know.
well, let me just add a couple things on that point. Is the bookstore, Village Square Bookseller, has the book, everyone's books in Brattleboro, and one of the bookstores says, well, where's the artist? Where's the author's name on here? And they said, is the real author really in here? And it's almost like, no, it's not. You don't really know.
Yes.
I want to just direct an answer to Marty's question about teaching kids and so forth, because we had an unusual and kind of a fun experience at our home. My son from Los Angeles was visiting. He's in his early 30s, and Leslie Goldman, my wife, and I. So we decided to play GorMatt Strange Peak, the three of us. Now my son works as he uses Photoshop and does PowerPoint presentations, but my wife had a PTSD kind of experience, like many adults, with art,
Oh.
and thinking she's not an artist, she doesn't know anything about art, she can't cut, so she didn't want to do anything having to do with art at all. So we had three people with different ranges
Backgrounds
of
in
backgrounds in
yeah.
art, right? So we started out, and we took a piece of pastel paper, and these are 9 by 12 sheets that different colors, and so we randomly picked a color, put it in front of us. And then we used a catalog. Now, we could either use these, like I said, these day in the life calendar pages, or there's a book of collage, a book of posters that we got from a friend that we could just randomly flip through, tear out a page, and use whatever was on that page. So that's the element of chance and randomness that Gordon was talking about. So the rule was, on the first round, we'd each put down one shape or one piece. Then we would pass to the right, and we would get that one piece, and we'd add 3 to that. Then the next turn, we'd add 5 to that. The next turn, 3, and next turn 1. So we kept it simple.
Yeah, went up and down.
Went up and down, 5 turns, and that. So Ty, my son, is kind of skeptical of things, kind of said, all right, I'll do this. My wife was trembling because, that
Yeah.
PTSD experience in art. But when we got going in it, complete silence, concentration, and people had such fun, and the collages that came out of it, I thought were quite decent. This is the one that of the ones I can't remember who started this one, but who put the first piece on it. That was one of them. This is the other one that came out, and this is the third one that came out.
Wow.
So sometimes we tore the paper. Sometimes we cut. Sometimes we used shapes that were geometric. Sometimes irregular. And so, but the point is, like Gordon was saying, is that the collages I think are great. But it was the process and how everybody got into it and really enjoyed it. Even my wife, who was not sure she would, and my son again, who was is this the way I want to spend an hour of my day?
Yeah.
But he enjoyed it too. So I think, Marty, that would be a great process for children in school, because you could imagine this being played by 3 or 5 or even 12 people around a table with passing the papers around.
Right, and I can really see where, because I have the same phobia for drawing, because I can't draw, it has.
Right.
You have the ability to do something that looks very nice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
very. And I was wondering, what do you ever like? Some of them do you cut them ahead of time? Do you ever cut them right then?
The rules of the game are you have your blank piece of paper. We start the timer 10 minutes, and you open to a random page.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's a magazine, like a New York Times magazine, or you draw a calendar page.
And you have to extract an image
And
from that random page.
and you whatever you open to, you take.
Uh-huh.
You have to use it.
You can't go, oh, no, I don't like that one.
That's right. You can't. You're not allowed to, supposedly. And so you have 10 minutes to put down as many images as you want, usually 3 or so, because you have to cut them.
Uh-huh.
And you glue them, and then beep, beep, beep.
That's
Then
you
it
move on.
just goes
Yeah.
on like that. It's very simple.
Mhm.
It's very simple. You know.
But enjoyable.
Right.
It really is. I just want to make a comment about the type of adhesive, because we use this rubber cement, and it's quick drying. It can be removed if you put it down and you say, I don't like where it is, you just peel it right
peel it
off,
off.
and you can put it somewhere else. And I don't want to encourage anybody to inhale it, so use a well-ventilated space
Yeah,
when you're
okay.
when you're applying it. But anyway, so basically you need glue, you need scissors, you need some sort of a paper, like a pastel paper, or sometimes we've used the calendar page. Just torn out a photograph from a calendar. And then you need a source of images, which could, like I said, either be calendar, dated and calendar catalogs, or a
Right.
magazine. Sometimes
Fantastic.
The rules, it's very adaptable. The basic rule is trade, you know, trade it.
Interact and
Interact
trade.
it, right.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool.
And, you know, you don't criticize the other person for what they put down or anything.
Mhm.
You just, oh, you did that. Oh, my God. Okay, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it.
I'm getting a signal that we have about 4 minutes left, so I want to
Okay.
make sure we talk about the book. Again.
I just wanted to show this.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe you already, but this is in the back of the book, it shows the process. If you look from left to right, you'll see the beginning.
Oh, okay, from here.
From there
across,
to there,
Yeah.
how each. And
How
then,
it works. Boy, that's fantastic.
And
Yeah,
then
thanks.
the final product is on the back page.
Oh, neat.
So
In the book are various pieces of art that were around happenstance, and with their labels then.
yes.
Cool. And is there a biography of Jane Docent, or?
And yes, there's an introduction.
Oh, okay, good, good,
It's
good.
a biography of the artist and the and Jane as well,
Wonderful.
along with other characters as well. There's more. There's his present wife, whose name is Maud Lynn.
not too many puns in this thing. I mean, as an
and-
appreciator of puns, I love this.
And Carly Young, the daydream psychologist, who's a friend of Jane
Carly.
Docent, Carly Young.
Yes.
Anyway, there are a number of characters that they're very endearing that you'd want to meet.
Yeah,
if-
and you
if-
might meet on the street.
you
in
might meet them on
happenstance.
the street.
And the art you'll see because is the art in people's houses, or is it on the street too?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's
Or
in
if I
kiosks. It's
open
in
it right
Oh,
now.
okay.
it's in people's
Kiosk
homes.
on the corner of Main and Maine, as in Maine. Or another one would be Patty's Pub next to the Rockwell calendar.
That's wonderful. Again, it's GorMatt Strange Peak. Great Art Undone. You can get it at the Village Square booksellers. You can get it at other bookstores. You can check out Gold Peak at vermonttel.net and check out what they're doing and how they're doing it. I think, how are we doing on time there,
It's
Colin?
a short latest one.
Well, we're a little over, but go
Okay.
ahead. This is it for the feed for this week. Take it easy. It's Mike and Marty. Thank you guys for coming on. I'd love to have you on again.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike